their 100%, as they start detaching, they start saying something like, I'm not going to try so hard anymore.
That's true.
And I'm going to put 30% into this.
Yeah.
And even they put 30%, they don't see it because some of these clients I work with are such high achievers. Their 50% is everybody else is 200%. So they make it small, and it takes so much energy to work for 30% for somebody who used to work for 100%.
Yeah.
So it's so draining for them.
Yeah, because they're holding back.
Yes, holding back is so hard than going for it sometimes. And they start losing energy. They start, getting depressed. Life force is leaving. And how do you catch that?
Hey everybody, welcome to Finding the Upside. I am so glad you chose to join us today. I am in the studio and I have a special guest. I'm going to introduce her in a moment, but I'm so glad that you joined us. I have on the podcast today Mizuho Kanazawa, and her nickname is Miho. I'm so excited to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you for coming. So I wanted to do just a brief intro to give everybody an idea of what your background is, but then I'm going to turn it over to you and let you elaborate. Miho is a therapist, and she is dedicated to working with clients whose personality and life experience was shaped by more than one culture. So they're multicultural individuals. She works closely with her clients and seeks to empower the multicultural person through all chapters of their life to build confidence and be connected in all their important relationships and valued in the community, which I love. Over time, as she works with clients, she helps to give them and gain a new perspective and give them fresh ideas and behaviors and practical tools to navigate people who juggle multiple cultures. And we'll talk, I'm sure, about all the interminglings and all the different people that you deal with, students and families and all the different places where they might come from and where this comes into play. But I'm sure we'll also touch on assimilation and all the different things that have to do with the people that you work with and what they navigate. So could you share a little bit more about your work, your background, and how you came to start to do this work and work with the clients that you do?
Sure. Okay, great. So, yes, my name is Miho.
Yes.
I came to this country a few decades ago, like 30 plus years ago.
Okay, yeah.
So my English is not my first language.
Yes, got it.
So when I got here, I couldn't speak any English.
Nothing?
And then,
How
I went
old
to
were you?
school. I was 18, 17. I came here for college.
Okay.
And I never left.
Wow.
Yeah, so I stayed on and, just saying yes to different inspirational moments led me to become a therapist. And as a therapist, I started my career working in different hospitals. And in a system of the hospitals, I encounter so many patients getting misunderstood because of the cultures that they come in with. Like you might want to get a hot drink instead of a cold drink. And there's a crash of the care, like between the system thing.
In the hospital.
Okay. And it's a very white male system.
Yeah.
So I have witnessed very, many occasions that are very heart-crushing.
Yeah.
The patient's needs are kind of overridden by the system. And it was very difficult to work and advocate as a person of color, as an Asian woman with accent, and as a woman.
Yes.
So I just felt like I can't advocate for my patients in a system because I'm kind of, being made to do the things that I need to do because I work for the system.
Right.
So
administration is kind of guiding what you're supposed to be doing.
Yes.
But you don't feel that's in line with the needs of the patient.
Right. So sometimes I had to report a patient, maybe co-sleeping or which I completely endorse because many of our worlds live like they sleep together with children and parents. Yeah. But it's not the norm in kind of Western culture.
I see.
So that type of stuff really was difficult for me.
So the cultural differences and the system doesn't understand the difference in the culture.
Right.
I see.
So I decided to leave the hospital work, and I decided to open up a practice of my own where all these multicultural clients can come and they can talk about their practice, their cultural practice, where they come from, and what they want to do to their loved ones without feeling so scared of being reported or being called out. That's abnormal. I wanted to make a really safe space for these individuals. So I started my practice in 2007 or so. And there's nobody, of course, when you start up a practice.
Right, because you're starting from scratch.
Yes, and there's no one for 6 months or so.
Yeah.
But I was really believing that there's a more need for this.
Yep.
And so I kept spreading word, and I just got my first patient. And working with her and led to another patient. And
so by referral, and you started to get known.
Yes. So now I have full practice for many years, and I'm very blessed to work with all of my clients, and I love all of them.
My question for you is, did you find that satisfaction in being able to follow your instincts and help them as you needed? And what did that feel like for you?
Oh, I love it so much. I feel that's my safe space for me as well. So when I am not scared of being called out to do something that I truly believe, but I feel safe to do my work with the clients, I think that's the best space for healing. So I feel wonderful, and I feel moved by the work that I do with clients and what they bring in every single day of my life.
That's wonderful.
Yes.
Now, is your patient population, is it Asian or all multicultures, or how does that work? And how does that fit in with what you do and kind of your mission?
Well, when I work called multicultural, it includes a lot of people.
Okay.
So I do have many clients who come from countries in Asia.
Okay.
Or mixed race individuals, and they're even like white folks, like white people who have lived in different countries, grew up.
I see.
I don't know if you know this term called third culture kids. These are the individuals who grew up in countries that are not their parents' passport countries.
Okay. So maybe they were living overseas.
Yeah.
Their parents were working overseas, and they were raised there.
Yes, so these kids are often like kids of diplomats or military. So they have really formed their personality and their experiences through various cultures.
Interesting.
And so they hold that inside of them, but they don't show it through the appearance. So they get a little stuck and very isolated wherever they go. Sense of belonging becomes very big issue for them. Yeah.
So I love the work you do, because I think, and this word sense of belonging is coming into so many conversations these days. And I'm so happy to see that. I mean, even in a corporate environment, we're talking about that, right? Like, how do we bring a sense of belonging? Because when people feel like they belong, then they can be their best selves, and they can work at their best and thrive. So in the work that you do, not only obviously providing a safe space for them to talk about what they want to do in their families or navigating that, how do you help them address navigating when they're working or being inside of those spaces that are not just their culture?
Right, yes.
What do you do
well,
with them?
I have many clients who work in corporation.
Okay.
And they struggle a lot, through just not feeling like they're being valued, or they've hit the bamboo ceiling. Sometimes some of the Asian-looking people feel like the same person who got hired the same year getting promoted, what's happening to me? Like I'm not get promoting or, promoted, or I'm not getting raised. And they internalize this into a self, esteem goes down. And it's such a hard experience for them. So we talk weekly usually about this, and surprisingly, and then also it makes sense that these individuals learn to kind of advocate for themselves in a system or they choose to kind of go back to their original self. Because many of these individuals who work in the corporations actually haven't had a chance to question themselves, who am I? So, and they are often raised by first generation immigrants. So they are doing it for the parents as well.
Yeah.
So I always have some clients who are working through this space of like, can I leave this company? How do I make money? But I wanted to be a painter since I was 3. I knew this.
Oh, okay. So not trying to live up to the cultural or parental expectations,
Right, yes.
but not following their own dream.
Yes. And then, they are so conditioned to kind of fear and also create safety in this culture and in a system. They don't know how to go to this heart place of like, if I want to paint, I should paint. Then what happens to the insurance, the salary?
Yeah, it's a reality.
Yeah, and it's a very deeply ingrained fear, and we work through it. And I have many people who left corporation and build their own beautiful artistic companies. Because my training is creative arts therapy. So I do drama therapy,
right?
And I use a lot of kind of colors and arts as well. So I tend to attract very creative individuals who are kind of stuck in the corporate world. So they have launched their own businesses, and it's been such a pleasure to witness them.
That's like so great to hear and see. It does also, though, for me, bring up that there's so many people who aren't getting the help, right? That are stuck in this place. And I have to say this. I worked in corporate for 20 years, and I am white, but I'm a woman. So, and I have seen many different biases come into play, if you're not a white man, right?
Right.
And it is what it is. It's in all spaces. And some of the conversations that you were expressing about, or the circumstances you were expressing about, why did I get the raise, or I didn't get that, I'm not getting valued as much as. We have to be honest in that sometimes bias and difference comes into play, right?
Yes.
And that's the challenge, is to be aware of that and to make sure that we're all addressing that so that doesn't come into play. There are some companies that are doing that work, but there's some people who don't want to do that work. And it's so ingrained in our society.
Yes.
So what do you think needs to happen in corporations? Like, it's great if somebody can leave a corporation and make it on their own. But if the dream is to work for a company,
right?
What do you think needs to happen inside companies to change that?
Well, the creative space, like, it's very unfortunate that individuals who are so creative and who can contribute so much within the corporation, like, their only choice is to leave, right? So I think that space needs to be created within the company.
Yeah.
So that means like a leadership needs to be creative people.
Yeah.
And we can't be creative if we are fearful.
Very true.
So how do you kind of create a fearless environment and actually invite mistakes? And the more mistakes you make, the more we learn, then we kind of can navigate to find out what works for us.
Yeah.
So that space is needed, I think.
Agreed.
Yes. And then they need to take time with it. It's not like, once a year workshop. No. It's like ongoing conversation, as if they're all in kind of process groups, therapy group, like support group every week.
Yeah.
So, and then I think it's very important that they find a space that like there's no hierarchy in a system. I know there's a CEO or COO, and there's an employee that's like first year, 5 year, like, people cling on to that status.
Yeah.
But I think there needs to be a room, like literally a room in a corporation where everybody get bare feet and sit down on the floor and talk like they're in a village and everybody has the same equal voice. So I think
that's a really interesting concept, and I think that I agree that would be amazing.
Yes. And then I think the facilitator needs to be not somebody or like has to take turn.
Mm-hmm.
And I think starting from there and do a lot of cultural share.
Yeah.
In that space.
Yeah.
Everybody has culture to bring in.
Well, I want to follow up on some of the things that you said because I love so many things that you mentioned. First off, agreed. It needs to be not just a one-time training. It needs to be embedded within the corporate culture, right? And the corporate culture should then shape how everybody operates within it, right? And so agreed that in order to change that, yes, have to be aware of it, committed to it, and it has to be an ongoing practice. And I think that, let me say this, I think that there are some companies that are aware of this, and some that might be doing a good job at starting to create those safe spaces. They've recognized that creativity and innovation comes from difference. It comes from difference of background, difference of thought, different perspective, right? And it doesn't mean it comes from here, right? Like you were saying, that not like it could come from anybody, right? I think where they struggle is implementing that. And I think part of it is because they don't have that ongoing practice. It's a let's check a box and we think we're doing this, but there's not enough ongoing practice to change that. That's where I think the game changer is.
Right,
and I think the benefit, because obviously companies always look at, well, what's my ROI? Your ROI is going to be that if everyone can contribute their true value, you're going to get more innovative, creative ideas. You're going to get the best of everyone. And another thing is, people don't have to leave because they don't feel like they don't belong.
Right. Yes.
So I think it's a win-win.
Yeah. Have you seen good examples of that implementation?
I mean, I have seen some companies do some really forward-thinking things. This is my perspective and what I've seen. I haven't seen that widespread yet. I think in these last few years, there's been more conversation about it. Again, that's the good thing. And that's one of the reasons why I talk about that so much on this podcast, diversity, and not diversity like hire different people. Like we talked about that a little bit. True honoring difference and understanding, and really it's cultural competency, understanding different cultures, accepting different cultures, and allowing everybody to fall within their own center and bring their own value, right? I think that the conversations are great because it comes into the awareness. And I also think the workers are going to start to force this because we are at a talent, an issue with retaining talent and attracting talent. And this is one of the major reasons because people feel like they don't belong.
Right.
So it's not for ROI for businesses, it's business imperative because it's costly for people to leave and have to rehire and retrain.
Yeah.
But I do think that we need to keep these conversations going to help enlighten everyone to understand why it's so important and what the impact is.
Right.
That's what I think.
Yes, definitely. So I think it's very important for the company to come up with a system to keep the heart pumping.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah.
With this ongoing conversation. And, our hearts never stopped since we are, in our mother's bellies.
Right.
It's the same thing. But I also think they need to be able to catch the process of detachment. So employee, like when my clients want to leave a company, it doesn't come like this.
No, it's over
it's
time.
Over time.
Building.
They have tried.
Yes.
They have not gotten validated. They have been ignored. They feel they have skipped over. They have not been honored.
Yes.
And they speak, and then they get told like, why didn't you say something earlier? So like anything they do is not validating for them.
Yeah.
So they start detaching. So how does the company catch a person whose heart is detaching?
That's a great question, and I don't disagree with you. I think that has to be more of a program where those signs, are recognized.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And I could, if I kind of put it from my perspective, I think what it's in the business speak or the corporate think, it's about engagement.
Mm-hmm.
People use this word engagement.
Mm-hmm.
It is an issue that we have so many disengaged employees,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's part of it.
Yes, yes.
But I think the things they're doing to increase engagement are falling flat, and they're not recognizing, and this is, I'm speaking very generally, they're not recognizing why the detachment is happening and why somebody's pulling back, right?
Yes.
And part of it is because they've got to recognize that leadership hasn't made that a safe space and made everyone belong.
Yeah. I think it can be very simple. I mean, I almost wish like this magical, like,
Yes.
like a airport thing, like everybody comes through and like be detaching, and if you can get a sign,
oh my God,
that's great. And
Yeah.
then they can do some prevention,
You're
approaching,
100% right.
but we don't have such machine. Right? But then at the same time, I think there's what I hear consistently is somebody who get into the company, they hope for the best.
Yes.
When usually go in,
Yeah.
they do their 100%. As they start detaching, they start saying something like, I'm not going to try so hard anymore.
That's true.
And I'm going to put 30% into this.
Yeah.
And even they put 30%,
Yep.
they don't see it because some of these clients I work with are such high achievers. Their 50% is
It's
everybody else is 200%.
Yeah.
So they make it small, and it takes so much energy to work for 30%.
Yeah.
For somebody who used to work for 100%.
Yeah.
So it's so draining for
Yeah,
them.
because they're holding back.
Yes, holding back is so hard than going for it sometimes. And they start losing energy. They start, getting depressed. Life force is leaving. And how do you catch that? And I think sometimes the leadership or the manager can just ask a simple open question. Every day you guys come in, like, who's thinking that I'm going to just put 30%? It's not worth it.
Yeah.
Like, who is thinking that? And nobody's going to raise hands in public.
Right.
But how can you create a system where that, leadership can show, I know this is how you think when you're losing us, when we are losing you.
Yeah. Well, I think, there's two things at play. I don't disagree. I think you're right. I think it could be so simple, right? But the scenario that you just said, like who feels like they're giving nobody's going to admit to that.
Right.
But why they won't admit to that is because they're working within a system, almost like you in the hospital, right? Where it will be, punished if that's admitted, right? And so there's no safe space to admit that.
Right.
But as a leader, and as a leader myself in corporate, I led people. I would know because my radar was up for that. Like you see somebody pull back, you see why, how do I get them re-engaged? How do I light the fire again? What's going on? But not everybody's tuned into that.
No.
But it could be as simple, the data's there, right? They could pull the data. These companies could pull the data and have these set of metrics that they measure. Not the stuff they're measuring now for engagement. Like, what are the ways that somebody starts to detach? But all the time, there has to be a safe enough space that somebody can feel okay to say that.
Yes.
And say it.
Right. That's the system we like to have.
Yeah.
And to take a risk is actually applauded. And
That's
to
right.
be thanked for it.
That's right.
Yeah. Not be.
Yeah.
Like you
And the
said.
funny part about that, and not funny, but I think you know what I mean, is that in all corporate environments, everybody to some extent is masking up, right? Because they're modeling whatever's being modeled.
Right.
As the stuff that's being rewarded and, oh, this is the pet, right? And then it's like, okay, that's how I have to behave.
Right.
That's how I have to be.
Yes.
So it's really important for leaders to understand that and understand when they are reinforcing unproductive and poor models that aren't really what they want, that don't produce the best results.
Right.
And once that starts happening, then that's just social, that's sociology, that's human behavior, right?
Yes.
The norm is this. I don't want to be different than the norm, right? So if we can start to say the norm is all of these things, or the norm is somebody who does something way different and gets rewarded, or somebody who's completely themselves and unashamed to say, I don't agree with that. I think this is a better idea, or whatever. Or in my culture, this is how we would approach this. And that gets applauded, then everybody wants to shift.
Right. Yes.
But it's about the environment that has to come in hand with, besides just recognizing and monitoring behavior and asking questions.
Yes,
so,
I agree. Yes.
I'm hopeful that, again, as we continue to have these conversations, more people understand this. We start to, push this a little more.
Yes.
As I've said, I do have some colleagues that work for very forward-thinking companies that are really aware of this, and they're really trying their best to implement programs to be able to support this, or even to talk about creating these safe spaces. That's a big step.
Yes.
Right? But I also, because it's one of the things I have to highlight as a business, it's a business imperative.
Right.
We can't afford, first of all, we can't afford for these people to come out of the workforce. And do we really want them to feel like the only choice they have is to start their own company?
Right.
I mean, that's great in some ways.
Yes.
But that's why so many job openings, they can't find people.
Yeah, there's so many turnovers nowadays.
Yeah.
Like working for one company for a year feels enough.
It feels long, right?
Yes.
These days.
Yes.
Where my parents, they worked for the same company for 30 years, right?
Yes.
Well, thank you for that. That was awesome.
Yeah.
What I want to ask you is a little bit more specifically. I'd love to dive in a little more specifically with your work and kind of the specifics that you take people through. I know myself, my husband's Dominican. He is not from this country. So even, all cultures, when they come from a non-U.S., English is not their first language. Some of the struggles are similar. Obviously, some of the cultural things are different. But juggling multiple cultures is definitely a complex experience inside the family, even out in navigating, trying to get things done for yourself, going to the bank,
Yes.
and work, of course, as we said.
Yeah.
How do you help your clients kind of prioritize what's important in their lives and have what they're doing kind of align with their values, especially when they're faced with different cultures and expectations? How do you help them?
I think it's first so important within the kind of, we are talking about first immigrants, second generation, third generation, even fourth generation. This kind of, where you identify yourself to belong, the experience of immigrants are so different. And their cultural identity is very different according to that person. So I can't assume, right, that somebody has accent, somebody is, came to this country when they're 25, they must feel this way. Or I can't make that assumption.
Very good point.
Right?
Yeah.
And then, so ideally, we really need to take time from that person's narrative, what they want to do with their life, how they want to live their life, and how much they see themselves as, Japanese person or Chinese person or, from Puerto Rico, or I can't make assumptions. So they need to tell their story about their identity and their cultural identity. Some people don't have that attachment to how they look. Yeah. So I think we really need to work individually on that.
Because it really varies, is what I hear you saying.
Yes, right? Yes. And, I need to create space for that. Could you tell me about yourself, in terms of the cultural lens or ethnicity, or if that doesn't mean much to you, or sexual identity, like all of that, you know,
So many
stuff.
layers.
Yeah, we need to have that person speak for themselves, which wasn't the case, like, you know, 20 years ago, 10
Right.
years ago, even, like we decided for them.
Yeah.
And that's such a kind of, I think it's such a violent, I mean, it's such a blanket way of getting to know. I think it's too sloppy way of getting to know a human being. So we just really need to take time with each person.
And so that you do in your work. So
Yeah.
I'm curious, and as you are explaining that, do you think that we as people in society often don't take the time to get to know somebody individually because we're making those assumptions based on how they look or talk or...
Yes,
Okay.
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I talked to Onika, my best friend, who introduced me to you.
Yes.
We
Anika's
talk
great.
about this time, like concept of time. Like we stopped taking time for things that are most important. We so focused on, you know, cutting a shortcut, like having a shortcut,
Doing
or
it quick.
yeah, making
the hack?
a like, you know, template for email.
Yeah.
I mean, you can call me old school, but I write each email each time.
Yeah.
Because I want to connect with that person, and I don't have this template ready for my business. And I want to kind of honor that time, taking time in my business, and I think my clients feel it. Yes, and I agree that I don't think we take time. I think time is something that creates a lot of anxiety in people, like we don't have time for this, or you know, we need to just bundle them together, so we just call them people clutter. Take time with these people. I think who cares, you know, if it takes 3 years, because they might leave in 1 year if you don't take time. Yeah, we don't take time, I think.
Well, and I think in you know, definitely inside a company that's the case, and I would say that could be the case even without the cultural element, you know, like, and cultural, I say that in the sense of what we're used to considering culture, because we have differences in even, you know, my friend brought this to my attention. She's like, you know, we're both white and Italian, but like, my husband has a completely different family culture structure from the structure that he was raised in. You know, we have that in our country. The South is different than the Northeast, you know? And so there's these cultural differences inside the bigger population. But also just us as humans, you know, being introduced to somebody who's from Japan or from, you know, Spain or from Puerto Rico, and they were born there. If we make assumptions about what their experience is, we miss all the nuance and the individuality.
Yes.
And then to your comment, we can't connect with them. So even just in society, day to day, as friends, getting to know people, and, you know, humans like similarities, so they have to take time to get to know things that are different from them, and I encourage that. I celebrate that. I strive for that. I want that. Some people don't. So it's important to not make assumptions just because somebody, you know, has an accent or somebody looks a certain way, because you don't know what their lived experience is. And one of my previous episodes, we were talking about different cultures and assumptions that are made to the negative because of, and this example was a very successful Hispanic businessman, and some people question how he made his money because they're looking at him like, well, what, like, you think he's dealing drugs? Like, that's the only way, like, just because he's from New York? And so same idea here, right?
Yes. Yeah, and I think it's okay to kind of admit that, like, we are wired. We are so scared.
Understand
for
that
something
about us.
foreign. So we first, like, you know, try to push out, but then what do you do next and next step? I think that's the most important, because we are wired to say, I don't know you. You look different from me. You know, I'm gonna be cautious. I think that's human nature.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's human behavior. And I think the words you said that were so important is to admit that, right? That's always a thing. And, in all the trainings that I've done for cultural competency, because I go into companies and train on cultural competency and this idea. And the first thing that has to be established is admitting that as humans, we all prejudge.
Yes.
We all do.
Yes.
Prejudging, that's where prejudice comes from, right? So what do? You have to admit that we do it, because we all do it as humans. But you have to be aware of it to then dismiss it and be able to get to know that individual.
Right.
And the only way you can do that is by making that connection and spending the time.
Yes, yes.
So back to your comment about inside a company, like leaders, bosses have to take the time to get to know each individual. And I also liken it to not just about the cultural thing, but, as a teacher, for example. If a teacher tries to teach in the same way, and Annika and I have had many conversations about this, for all students, it's not going to work.
No.
Because everybody is different,
right?
Right? So taking the time to get to know what is this person about, what are they dealing with, what are their hopes, dreams, what are they struggling with, without those assumptions.
Yes, I agree.
So important.
Yeah. Yes.
So I am going to ask you some specific, if you don't mind, questions about people that you work with that are raised. You mentioned some things that are raised by first generation Asian parents and how they navigate that feeling that they don't belong while they're raising families in a different cultural context.
Yeah. Well, again, I think it's like individuals again. But I think nobody leaves their own country without feeling something big. It's just a fact. They everybody who have left their countries have good reasons that they left in some way, right? And do they have a lot of emotions around it? 100%.
Yeah.
Does it show up in them raising the kids? I think so often, and I think the kids feel it. How much they have to kind of go through this process of loss of their land, their country, their people, or sometimes they leave their parents.
Yeah, and leave them behind.
Right, a lot to leave behind, and then create a life and give birth to their own children. I think there's so much that gets put on the kid.
Yeah.
So, and kids feel it, and they wanna, I get this question a lot from the parents, like, kids, they have no idea of what we are doing. Like, once they become parents, they understand or something. But I really do think children love the parents more than the parents love them. I just have a belief in that.
Oh, yeah?
Just having worked with lots of children as well. Kids are so loving, right? And then we sometimes lose them because we have put too much of our expectation, our sense of guilt onto them in a very implicit way. They work so hard, and then many kids feel like my parents don't know me. My parents don't know who I am, truly, because I worked so hard to make them feel it was not regretful choice that they left their country.
I see.
Right? So they get so stuck in this silent place. So when I get these children of the first immigrants, I celebrate it, first of all, because it's such a huge courage for them to enter psychotherapy or therapy session, and many of them make it secret.
Oh, so they don't tell anybody.
Yes, because if their parents find out, they are like, what did we do wrong? Why can't you tell us everything that you're telling to a stranger?
I see.
So it takes a lot of courage for them to enter therapy.
So you celebrate that.
Yeah, I celebrate that. And we navigate that because, if that's safe space for them not to say, they don't have to say anything.
Right.
So there's a lot of managing and navigating these kids have to do.
Yeah.
And, when it comes to their career choice, their relationship choice, their diet choice, they might have sex before marriage. They might do experiment with drugs sometimes. All of those choices, they have to navigate, okay, I share this much with this part and I don't share this much.
I see. So they compartmentalize it.
Yes, and that's a hard place to be, and it brings up a lot of sadness in that individual. Yeah, and then parents struggle too because they are human, they are wired to feel. And so they come to the kids like, why can't you tell us anything?
Right.
But if they hear something, they might not hear it. They might skip over the very important part of, okay, I don't know what to say, but I'm glad you told me.
Right. Right. And celebrate at least the transparency.
Right. Instead of going directly to something a little more panicky or anxiety oriented.
Yeah.
So everybody needs to do a lot of learning in how to talk and listen in family system. Because family brings up a lot of anxiety because we want the best for the people we love the most.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's certainly difficult to navigate for sure. And what was intriguing about what you said, and I'm just reflecting on my own experience, right, with different cultures and even my husband's culture. You talked about them coming to this country and the guilt, the parents coming, and the guilt that the kids have to do certain things like, maybe it's like not like, oh, we came here, we sacrificed. They don't say that, but it's like this underlying thing and expectation.
Right.
I've seen that in the Hispanic culture as well.
Yes, yes.
And it's interesting how that plays out. And I think I see similarities in that in terms of whether the child, even if the child then is an adult, if they are able to have the courage to speak out, like to the parents, right?
Right.
And a lot of times that doesn't happen because they're too afraid.
Right. And sometimes, when I ask about empathy, different culture create. I ask my clients to create a little like sculpture of empathy, and many Westerners or American raised like person, like they might look like this is empathy, like me and
like
you looking.
Oh, okay.
And then another culture, empathy is you looking at me going like this.
Wow.
But just to know that you're hurting, but I'm not gonna talk about it. That's also be received as kindness.
I see.
And considerate thing. If somebody is crying in my session, I sometimes don't notice it. I try not to say anything about it.
You don't call it out.
Because that would make the person feel spotlighted.
I see.
So I ignore it a few times. And then of course, when we have rapport, I say, what does the tear say? What is that saying right now? So sometimes it is very cultural not to talk about it, to leave it alone. That's love. For some culture.
Very interesting.
Yes.
And that almost gives you a better sense of good intent, right? Like maybe it's misdirected, like from what we're talking about here, but it's like you get that it's not malintent though, right? It's like from them, that's love to not say anything, right?
Yes.
Whereas it's like, why aren't you saying something?
Yes.
I'm not being heard,
Yes. Yes. It's really, mixed bag.
Yeah.
So I sometimes find it, to be honest, beautiful. Yeah. And I sometimes find it very agonizing at the same time because
I could see that.
You don't know what's really happening in that person. And even in couples therapy session, I try to create a space that they talk to each other. And it's so important for them to report out what's happening inside of them.
Right.
And with certain culture, the person who is listening, like, stop, no, don't say anything. It's okay. It's okay.
Wow.
So that's your kindness, like to save him from saying something so vulnerable is received as kindness, what is it like for you to
to do that?
Yes.
Wow.
But this person also didn't get to say something.
Yeah.
At the same time.
Yeah.
So there's no practice in this. And if each one of us is saying, don't worry, it's okay, I got it.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's in a beautiful, harmonious way, that's beautiful. But when it turns negative, it's really isolating.
Ugly, right? Yeah.
And they do their own labeling each other. They don't talk about the heart and pain. And, that's when we really need to talk about, this is the story I make up. When you don't
fill in the blanks.
Right.
When you don't speak it, then everybody has their own narrative.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Yeah.
We have a relationship with our thinking.
Yes.
Not with each other.
Yes.
Yes.
So I want to follow up on some of what you just shared, because that was really such a great perspective, that one that I hadn't considered or really didn't have the understanding for. But you mentioned in some of the things that we spoke about and some of the things that you just said, that people choose silence sometimes rather than having conflict, right? Because they view that many times,
yes,
even sharing openly, which would help them heal and connect, they kind of think is conflict. What is the impact of that, and how do you get them to a place where they can then choose to advocate, or in any situation, relationship, in a work relationship, in society?
Yes.
How do you get them to a place to be able to do that?
Right. Well, if they are to have chosen silence to tuck it under their emotions, but they wanna, and then these people who do that are usually great helpers, great people who wanna fix things, who wanna make things better. Yeah, you're right. Like it costs them. Because their heart is never being revealed, and they're not being having a space to share themselves. So we really need to kind of first honor the protective strategy, which is the silence, to avoid the conflict, because they lose that silence, then things might get worse.
Right.
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 If one person's going and then this person is not silent but goes away, this person doesn't like it, but this person, that's his or her way of creating peace.
Yeah.
So we really need to see good intent of that person and celebrate it and tell that person, keep having that strategy all your life because you have had it. And also make him or her realize like how it has cost you
right
to a space. You haven't had the space to talk about you and your feelings and learn to put words into your experience. Can we practice that?
And I would imagine it is a practice because the go-to is so culturally ingrained.
Right. Yes. And then they might say, I don't know. Okay. So I don't know. I think people go to I don't know if we say something, we get doomed. If we don't say something, we get doomed.
Right.
So I don't know is their best strategy to keep peace. So we honor it. Thank you for saying I don't know. What does I don't know say? Create the space, let that person talk. And I think really, validate that. The more we kind of validate the system they have been holding on to, they have to do less of it.
Yeah.
If there's a good reason for it.
Yeah.
And then they kind of start, okay, somebody sees me.
Right.
It's not because I don't care. It's not because I am an avoidant person. I have good reasons that I've done this. Mizuho sees me, Miho sees me. Who am I?
And then only then they feel safe enough to explore that, I would imagine.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah. And, we're talking about this work, and what I really want to bring out is these are human conditions, right?
Yes.
And so this is specific, your work, to working with these individuals from these cultures, but really anyone that feels like they don't belong fits this bill.
Yes, completely.
right?
Yes.
Anyone.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to, and that's something that's like my passion. Like, can we all just strive to create a sense of belonging in every single space, in every single corner?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because that's how we can all feel and be our authentic selves,
Yes.
right? And be our best.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no pain because people could be honored for who they are and what they feel and all of that. And some people have a negative view of that, like, oh my god.
Yes.
But
yes.
when you see the value, and I would even say not just the value, the beauty and harmony that creates, you
Right.
just can't deny it.
Yes, yes. And I think that sense of belonging is such a, beautiful word, and that's their used word. I think we need to get to know the individual's definition of what that feels like.
That's true.
To me, I am a more outgoing person. So for me, sense of belonging is a little bit of like connection. We do something like, yeah, kind of feeling. But somebody else, it might be just a place that has no conflict.
That's true. And again, not making that assumption that it's all the same for everyone. Right.
Yes, yes. And so we need to get to know that. Like, what does that feel like just to belong safely?
Yeah.
Some people might be just exist in a way, and that might be enough, and that might be hard for other people to hear and frustrating.
Yeah.
But also honor it.
Yeah.
You can exist with us.
Mm-hmm.
I think we kind of, it's so hard to be another person when it's me. It's very hard for me to understand somebody who just wants to exist. But I also, need to understand that.
Need to honor that. Well, and I think it's really what we're expressing here, right? Is these common themes of embracing the differences of all of us, right? And of all our ways of being. And I think that's the thread, right? That's the through line in all these conversations, in your work and things I do and things I believe, and that what we're saying, even in all these spaces, would improve all these environments in our society as a whole, for sure.
Yes.
And I think, when we really look at changing demographics in the U.S., right? We have cultural diversity here, but it's not often welcomed and celebrated in all spaces. And again, we need to keep pushing that because it does contribute to mental health issues. And we have this big crisis right now.
Yes.
As well as all these other things we've talked about in this conversation that impact business and impact people's lives and impact, even just interactions with everyone that we speak with or deal with, relationships. And it's at so many levels. So many people feel disconnection and struggle with belonging in this multicultural society. And in my opinion, and I'm going to ask you this question, I feel like what I just stated, like just getting to a place of acceptance of being whoever you are, like live and let live, live and let be, let everybody be who they are. What do you think is that trigger? Is it that? Is it something else? Is it more than that needs to happen so that the U.S. can become a little more, all the words are inclusive and embracing and accepting. What are the words, and how would you characterize that?
What do you mean by trigger?
Like, what is the thing that needs to spark?
I see.
To create like that momentum and change.
I think any change actually happens within like our parameter. So you being married to your husband, you have evolved, I'm sure, by being with this person.
Yes.
And me too.
Yes.
Interracial.
Yes.
And I think we really need to kind of start from there. Yeah. And acknowledging that and how far we could have come as an individual.
Yes.
And I have to say, like, when I got married, 25 years ago, like it was so hard to see people who are getting married, but like I seen so many interracial couples, and people, like companies also start mingling. And we don't have a choice, right? Like when you're married to somebody, you need to talk about what to eat.
Yeah.
And the culture comes right in there.
Of course.
Right? Like you might want to eat something, he might want to eat something. You just make your own culture.
Yes.
And I think that mindset needs to be there in a bigger scale of things. And we talk about diversity, and we used to, I think, call like New York City as like, what's that called? Like a salad bowl or something?
Melting pot?
Yeah, melting pot. But they have corrected, like I might be wrong, but like recently it's like more like a bento box. We are not so immersed with each other.
Because it's compartmentalized.
Yes. So I think we need to really get to know each other on a personal level.
Yeah.
Like I bring my miso soup to Onika's house.
Yes.
She eats it.
Yes.
She's going to feel differently about Japan.
Yes.
And me.
Yes.
For the rest of her life.
Yeah.
And I never forget the Swedish meatball that she made me.
Yes.
We need to eat each other's food, each other's environment, and to have the courage to go across the boundary.
Very true.
You know, and I think workspace and personal space, you know, many people make this boundary, try to say, it's just work. I don't want to talk about my personal thing. And I think we need to honor that if that person has that boundary.
Yeah.
At the same time, I think work hasn't done a great job of wanting to have individuals invite them over in a way.
Yeah.
And be themselves.
Yeah.
Because the food, the refrigerator they have, that's them. You know, who they are. I mean, I'm kind of talking about food because food is important in my culture.
Well, and food in many cultures, right? And I think you bring a really important point, like getting to know, and you talked about your experience and my experience. 100% I can speak from my perspective that I am not the person I am today. I wasn't that person 20 years ago. Well, 25, 30 years ago. And it's been a embracing and a bracing of a different culture, and seeing myself and addressing my own beliefs, my own limiting beliefs, my own assumptions and prejudices. I mean, for sure.
Yes.
Unraveling that has allowed me to create that connection to understand another culture. And I do that, obviously, not just with my husband's culture, but because I've traveled different places. That's some of the things that I love, is getting to know other people's culture. Learning about their food is one of the easiest ways to create that connection.
Right.
And although I don't want to speak for all areas, because we are blessed in this New Jersey, New York area. We have all foods. You know, some states might not. You know, there's some people who might be listening in the Midwest who don't have the opportunity and the blessing of being able to have that familiarity. But that is an easy step.
Yes, it is.
To start to get to know a different culture and what they're about. And so, and then just being comfortable, what you said was so important. Increasing that comfort to get to know something that's different.
Yes.
Right? And so I agree with you, and I think that, you know, all of us just trying to make that happen.
Yeah.
Is
I
what
think
we need.
so. Yeah, because you become so diversified inside of you because of this marriage and because of you traveling, because of your curiosity. You kind of took different things all of your life.
Yeah.
And who have you become? Yeah, it's the person of diversity within yourself.
Right.
And we can make assumptions about that, like who we are.
Right. And I think that also, you mentioned work, right? Nobody wants to share personal things, but work is the one place that has the potential for cross-cultural knowledge, connection. Because if we go to church, that usually has some kind of cultural element, right? Inside our families, if we're not marrying outside of our race, culture, whatever, we're not being exposed.
Uh-huh.
In our neighborhoods, we're probably not either. And
Right.
even in New York City, like you said, or Philadelphia, that's another example.
Mm-hmm.
You have these little pockets. You have every single culture, but little pockets. They don't intermingle.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
So workplaces have the potential
Right.
to
It's
do
a
that.
space for it,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
If they can start off this kind of, the bare feet mingling space,
What you
and
had
then they
said.
start the cultural share, like bring one thing out of your bag that means a lot to you.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody,
Yeah.
sharing something about, oh, this is green tea that I
Yeah.
drink every day.
Right.
To this is the, like earring that my mom gave me. She passed away 20 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
If we go through that, I mean, it may be a little bit like too personal, but I think those personal space creates the creativity, the safety for creativity.
Because it creates the connection and it creates the sense of belonging.
Right.
Or the at least I'm able to express myself who I am here.
Yes. Yeah, and I think, when we share it, I think in this kind of sharing, they needs to have a little bit of echo back.
Yeah.
So if they share something, I'm a theater person.
Mm-hmm.
So that person who is across from that, sharing person might do one gesture or one thing that kind of reflects the feeling. Like,
Yes.
I spilled coffee all over this morning and I had a bad start of the day. And that person might go like, ugh.
Mm-hmm.
And then this person feels understood. That person enacts it out.
Oh, I see.
And then kind
that's
of go like this.
the drama therapy.
Yes,
right?
that's a drama therapy part, and I utilize that type of reflection. We need to be reflected.
Yeah.
Since we are babies, babies cry, and the mom go, I get you. You are hungry.
Mm-hmm.
It's a reflection. We need the reflection throughout our life until we die.
Yeah. I think there's so much inspiration in this conversation and stuff that I would love to see happen. And I think the way we've spoken about it and the way you've brought, thank you, because you've brought a lot of great ideas. Obviously, thinking about how to implement that and how to create that inside all these spaces is, I think, the work is cut out for the leaders. But it's one that I think is necessary and that has impact for all of us. And then as individuals, because everybody listening here, just as individuals, taking that step to get to know that person and not make assumptions about because they come from a country or speak this language that this is who they are, really getting to know them, but also celebrating and striving to understand where their culture is different than ours.
Yes.
I think that's the most enriching, satisfying experience, not just for the person, but for yourself.
Yes.
And I can speak to that because that's my whole life.
Yes, you love yourself more because of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, Miho, thank you so much for this
you.
interview and this conversation.
Yes.
I hope everybody has enjoyed the feedback and all the great information and ideas that you've shared. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for
I
having
really
me.
enjoyed this.
Me too.
Thank you so much. Well, that's all for today's episode. Thank you so much for joining in. I hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time on the next episode of Finding the Upside.